This is Justin Ruiz for CSC300 Midterm 2. So a lot of the code that is used for Midterm 2 is carried over from the last assignment, so I'll just mainly be going over what has changed from Assignment 7 to Midterm 2. So basically, the first thing that has changed here is the saving and loading of an existing network. So first we set the network to null just to create it. So the first thing that will happen is that the code will check if there is a file in the source folder named savedosn.ser. So I used serialization to load and save classes for this program. So basically, it'll check if it exists, and if it does, then it'll go ahead and load it into the network that was instantiated here. If it doesn't, then it'll just create a new OSN here and go through the same initialization process as in Assignment 7. All of this is the same here, basically all of this. And then finally, when the user selects the option to quit out of the program, it will go ahead and save the new file into the source folder. Now, moving to the classes that will be using the serializable implementation here. Basically, profile implement serializable makes it so that I can save users and organizations into the OSN, and the OSN will also implement serializable as well so that it can be saved using that through that method. Okay, now I'll go over the methods that have changed or any new additional methods that I've created for the scope of this project. Initialize stays the same and the login loop stays the same. Now, what has changed in the login method here is that I've added an additional prompt that will ask the user if they would like to register a new account or log into an existing account. Now, if they choose to register for a new account, it'll go into the register method here. So basically, the logic follows: if the user chooses to register a new account and the maximum number of accounts hasn't been reached, therefore we will make a new account. So let's just go ahead into the register network here method, register user method. So basically it's just a standard prompt and input loop that will happen here. Entering the first name doesn't have to be exclusive, last name doesn't have to be exclusive, neither does the date of birth. Now, when they do enter their username, it does have to be a unique username per network. So to do that, we create a do-while loop and ask the user for their username. If the username is already in the database, if it isn't in the database, then the username is valid, and then we break out of the do-while loop. Now, if it isn't valid, as in their username is already existing in the network, it'll simply go back and ask them to make a new one. Now, they get 3 attempts. So here, if attempts is less than or greater than 1, that means they've attempted twice already. It will auto-choose their username. And this do-while loop here is for creating a randomly generated username. So what it'll do is it'll make the username equal to their last name plus a random number from 1 to 1,000. Now we do have to check again if that for some reason, somehow, that randomly generated last name with a random number is already in the network. If it isn't in the network, then the username is valid, and then we break out of this loop, and it'll break out of that loop, the outer loop as well. Now, this will continue to happen. This will continue to pump out random numbers attached to their last name until the last name plus that random number is not in the database already in the network. Now, the last thing they'll ask them to do is choose their password. Then we'll create the user and add their credentials to the network database. Hardcode friends is completely obsolete now, as we no longer need to do that. And what's changed in the show user options is just the prompts have changed to match the scope of this project. Okay, so for the run user options, same thing as the last method, just change the methods here. Well, they're the same methods from the last program, but they do different functions now. Slightly different functions. So for the add friend page here, if the user selects one, it'll ask them if they would like to add a friend or follow a page. And then if they choose one, it'll go ahead into the add friend method. If they choose two, it'll go ahead and add into the add page method. Now the add friend method and the add page method is basically the view friend updates and the view organization updates from the last project, except that we do not display the updates anymore, and we simply add the user or the organization to the current user's friend list or follow list accordingly. But it's accomplished the same way, it uses the same logic. And the add friend code logic is basically the same as the add page code logic. Now for the view feed function, all this does is if the user selects, if the user selects 2, it will go ahead and just grab all the friends in their friend list and call the display updates function that is already present in their class, in the user class. And basically it'll go ahead and use this for loop again and grab all the pages in the follow list and call the display updates in the organization class as well. Post update is the same exact thing from the last assignment. And that basically covers everything that was done in midterm 2. Now I'll go ahead and run the project just to show you that it works. So this is without an existing network already involved. It'll ask me if I would like to register a new user or log into an existing account. Now pressing logging into an existing account will show me that there are no users in the database and the organizations, there are 10 organizations that are automatically generated. So I'll go ahead and exit out of this and run it again. And you can see here that now that the program has already been run one time, the SER file was created in the source folder and it went ahead and it loaded the existing network. Although the existing network is basically the same as the empty network as there are no users present yet. So let's go ahead and register some new users. So I went ahead and created 3 random users here. I'm going to go ahead and link some of their accounts, as well as add organizations to their page. Okay, so I went ahead and I saved all those new users into the .ser file. So now I'm going to go ahead and load the program again, and it's going to go ahead and give me that the network was successfully loaded. I'm just going to check that all the information that was processed during the first run is present in the new run. So as we can see here, all the users and organizations that were added to the first account are all there. And the users that were added to the second account are all there as well. And that will happen for all the accounts in the network.